The closet stands open a little, and the white paint feels dry even from here. I keep looking at the inner wall where the surface turns flat and faintly chalked. There is almost nothing inside, only space and a kind of stillness that does not soften. The shelf holds its thin coat of dust, smooth in some places, grainy in others. I notice the door edge first, rough along one strip, cleaner where a hand might rest. The frame has a slight ridge under the paint, a line I keep tracing with my eyes. The floor inside looks bare, but not simple. The wood shows scuffs that catch the light. A cooler patch sits near the back corner, where the wall seems duller than the rest. I can almost feel the wall texture without touching it, powdery, level, and slightly tired. The inside air seems thinner than the room air, not colder, just less willing. Nothing fills the lower half, and that emptiness presses harder than any object would. The hinge side carries a different finish, smoother, but marked by small, uneven spots. I watch the inner door panel where the paint has tightened over shallow dents. The shelf bracket leaves a faint shape under its screws, hard and fixed. The back wall looks clean at first, then not clean, then plain again. I keep returning to the seam where two boards meet because it stays too exact. The wood under the opening has a worn strip, flattened by years of contact. The closet seems mostly empty, but the surfaces make their own company. I notice how the paint near the handle catches less light than the rest. The lower corner holds a rough patch, as if the wall there once resisted sanding. My eyes settle on the baseboard inside, narrow, straight, and slightly darker at one end. The door does not move, yet the grain on it never looks fully still. I look at the shelf again, at the place where dust thins. Without reason, there is a mild shine on the inner side panel, and it feels wrong for matte paint. The wall texture changes near the back, not enough to call damage, enough to stay visible. The empty hanging space keeps its shape too well, as if it remembers weight. I stare at the floorboards inside, and the scratches seem careful rather than random. The frame feels close even across the room, close in the way dry wood feels. A small nick near the latch exposes a darker layer beneath the white. I do not need to step nearer to notice how uneven the painted surface is. The inside corner looks packed tight, smooth at the top, coarse, lower down. The closet gives back No sign of use right now, only marks that stayed behind. I keep noticing the shelf edge, thin, firm, and slightly swollen near the wall. The grain in the door panel curves softly, but never into any pattern I trust. The paint on the back wall has a soft drag to it, like a brush slowed there. I look at the open gap, and the space inside feels measured too closely. The lower panel on the door seems flatter than it should, almost sealed. The closet is mostly empty, though the surfaces do not read as vacant. The shelf has one darker corner where dust sits heavier, pressed into the wood pores. I cannot stop noticing the back left edge, where the paint turns faintly rough. The floor inside reflects almost nothing, and that lack feels more finished than shadow. Every surface looks settled, but none of them look relaxed. The inner wall has a fine texture, like paper pressed over something harder. I keep seeing the same narrow strip beside the hinge, smoother than the rest. The baseboard corner seems blunt, yet one edge there feels too sharp to ignore. The shelf underside stays pale, except for a small patch that looks rubbed clean. The closet opening holds its shape with a kind of quiet firmness. I watch the seam in the back panel, and the line stays narrow and exact. The door frame paint has tiny raised points, not enough to notice quickly, enough to stay. The floorboard nearest the threshold looks dry, almost fibrous in the grain. Nothing interrupts the space, and the lack of interruption becomes its own detail. I look at the side wall, where a shallow scrape sits under the paint. The empty bar across the top feels colder than the shelf, even without touch. The closet gives me flat surfaces, straight edges, and no place for attention to rest. I keep staring at the back wall because it offers almost nothing. The paint there feels thinner somehow, stretched across the board without slack. The lower right corner carries a small roughness, as if grit stayed trapped there. I notice the threshold first as wood, then as edge, then as a narrow stop. The door remains where it is, yet the inside panel looks slightly more rigid. The shelf corner near the opening seems drier, more brittle than the center. I watch the side panel and think only about how flat it keeps appearing. The closet is mostly empty, but the emptiness seems packed against the walls. The back corner holds a texture change that never becomes clear enough.